What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Chatting More with Lou. I'm Lou, your host, and today I have the honors to be sitting or having a conversation with the CEO of Kalon Kosmetics, Jaleeda. Jaleeda, tell us where we can find you and just a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me today. Um, to introduce myself, my name is Jaleeda. I am a former professional makeup artist. I was an artist nearly 10 years ago, and 4 years ago, I created Kalon Cosmetics. And you can find Kalon Cosmetics on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's just simply Kalon Cosmetics.
Perfect. And just so everyone knows, this is a Instagram based brand, correct?
Yeah, so we're primarily e-commerce, yes.
Okay, perfect. So if you guys are interested to check them out, go ahead and check Jaleeda on Instagram. You're on Instagram as well, right?
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead and check out Jaleeda and Kalin Cosmetics and pick up some of their products. From what I've heard, I personally don't have any products yet, but from what I've heard, you have great products. So go ahead and check them out. So with that being said, let's go ahead and just get a little bit more of the background of Kalin Cosmetics. So, I did do my homework. I did do some research, um, to just know a little bit about, what we're going to talk about today. So, from what I got most of the information off your website, which is very informative, pretty straightforward, and I really like that because, some websites are just you have to go jump through hoops to find one thing. So it was pretty straightforward. And your mission statement was to empower women of infinity diversity. Just explain to us a little bit about the background of that statement or why you chose that mission statement.
Well, to be honest, it was just a matter of at the time when I created Kalin in general, which we were not Kalin, but we can get into that later. Um, I had started makeup artistry, like I said, nearly 10 years ago. When I started it, I was coming out of a domestic violence relationship, so it's at my very low point. Obviously, going through makeup artistry, I learned a lot first on YouTube. So I watched the Marlenas and the Jacqueline Hills and, Michelle Phan back then. And
Yes.
then because, doing makeup on myself made me feel good, I knew that I could, do something else for other people. So I decided to go to day shelters and, with a group of friends and family members, those who were hairstylists, makeup artists, and food volunteers. So we would go to the shelters, help out, get them ready for their interviews or whatever they may have going on during that day. So from that point forward, I was like, I can do this on a larger scale. So 4 years ago, when I created Kalin, it was more so about empowering women and making them feel confident again, because from my lowest point, it was about rebuilding my own self-confidence.
Right. And I absolutely love that because again, like makeup brings it's like therapeutic for a lot of situations and different types of people. So we all have like a story and why we started makeup and why we do makeup. So I love that your brand is means something, you know what I mean? So like you started it from something that what it isn't so great, and it's like I would say a tragedy, right?
Right.
I just don't
Well,
want to like say something that just doesn't. I want to be sensitive to the subject.
because domestic violence in itself is not really, such an easy topic to really discuss. But, I knew going through that situation, it was like I can either be a victim or I can be victorious. So I took my situation and flipped it so that I can help other women, such as myself, or, friends, or, strangers that don't even know me from a can of paint, and help them rebuild themselves again. Because that point when you are domestic violence tend to be a cycle. It is a constant cycle, and it's hard for whether it's men or women to leave a situation. And, eventually when they do, a lot of the time they come out with no money, no jobs, no sort of stability. So it's hard for people to get back on their feet. It's hard for people to rebuild their self-esteem. So, it's important in general in the beauty community too. It's rebuilding ourselves again.
Right, right. And with that being said, um, with you flipping that experience to a good and positive, I guess, making it a better thing and something that brings joy to you, you also created an event called You Can Make It, right?
Right.
And from what I saw, from what I read is it's you went to day shelters for women and children who were going through different types of struggles, hardships, also domestic violence, and so much more. So that kind of ties into how I'm assuming how you created and why you created Kalon Cosmetics.
Yeah, so when I created Killeen, it started off as private label, which is honestly the least inexpensive route. I met with a contract manufacturer here in the United States who also did private labeling. So it's like, they weren't my first choice because, you have to kind of do your research for the most part. But I was able to work with them side by side and really kind of get a feel of the products that they had. And I started with that because I knew I wanted to generate some sort of revenue to start the projects that I really wanted to start. And that is the Goddess Collections, which our second one is coming out this year. But the first one was very important to me. I sat down with my teammates, Kelly and Rachel, and we had decided to do the Goddess collection on autoimmune disease. So we dedicated the first palette, which is named the Aqua Luis, who is a healing goddess. Um, so we chose the color scheme based off a survey that we asked quite a few of our customers, and we chose some of the colors based upon the different types of autoimmune disease. And we went with their awareness ribbon. So you have like purple and blues, and stuff like that. So it was it was a project that allowed us to be able to create a safe space to be able to talk about some of the issues that we don't talk about often to each other. I think it's normal for us as, women and girls and guys to just gossip and talk about this and that. So let's create an environment where we can get back to being relatable to one another and being able to talk about things that really matter to help us rebuild ourselves back up. So for me, going through that situation, going through You Can Make It allowed me to realize, hey, this gap in the industry needs to be filled as far as us going back to being, relatable to one another and being able to bridge, or be able to build each other back up, I should say.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll get into the being relatable aspect when we talk about more of like the creators that we have now. So, going back to the event that you created with that is called You Can Make It. Do you still is this still a thing, or did it just evolve into something different?
So eventually it got a little bit harder because some of the people that, we constantly done it with, weren't able to do it, or the timing just wasn't ever right. Which is why I decided to go ahead and create the brand itself. Because if now, don't get me wrong, I still do things for my community, just the You Can Make It portion has, ended.
Okay. Yeah, so you still give back but in a different way. You still
Right.
do the You Can Make It just in a different way, which is
Right.
completely fine because I can understand with having a brand, it's taking on a big part and a big job. So, but as long I mean at least for me, as long as you're still giving back at some point because that is where you started and stuff like that. That's I mean that no matter how you do it, at least for me, the way I look at it is like no matter how you do it, you're still doing it. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
you're still giving back. And then with the Goddess collection, I also read, so I'm going based off of the things that I've researched and read. Some collections and some products are dedicated to a cause and awareness, to a certain cause and awareness, kind of like the Goddess collection that you mentioned, and that donates a percentage to a charity or an organization. And I'm assuming the Goddess collection is separate from the rest of the products, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So does the rest of the products that you have on for the brand, do they donate a percentage or is just the Goddess collection?
So it's primarily the Goddess collections only. Normally, if we create some new product, is normally just like a what customers need at that point in time. The Goddess collections usually take a lot of time because you have to not only build relationships with these charities and organizations, because we choose to only work with an independent organization or charity because they're normally the most transparent about where their funding is going, what they actually do, for the community. So we donate whoever purchased, that Goddess collection in general, the proceeds that we agreed upon with the independent charity or organization, we donate that to them.
Okay, okay. So you have to build a relationship with the charity of choice in order to, donate, because I know I don't know, but I've seen that a lot of brands say that they donate to charities, or like this their brand just fully is based for donations to charity, but I've seen some brands get in scandals regarding that's not true. um but I feel like there is a process that needs to happen for brands to donate to charities. Or is it just, today I chose that I wanted to, as a brand, I wanted to donate a portion of whatever it is to a certain charity? Or it's like, do you have to sign up an application, or what is that process?
So, from my experience, and maybe for new brands that are donating money really early on, they may go onto the website and may donate under their personal name. I'm not sure how, smaller brands may do it. However, in my position, I've had to sign actual legal paperwork in an agreement. So for example, with the Louise palette, ARDA, which is the American Autoimmune Related Diseases Association, they asked me how much you're spending for the budget, what's the budget, um, how many items, so forth and so forth. So they want you to be very transparent with them. And so, each month it's not like we go online or PayPal and put a donation in. We physically have to write a check and actually mail it to them. And then in return, they send us back, thank you letters and stuff like that. So from my
Right.
experience, it was an extensive process. The directors and the board of the organization had to approve it. And
Okay.
then once they approved it, then, every piece of paperwork or, because even inside of the packaging, we include, documentation of, you know, what the pallet's about, what the organization is about, what they do, what autoimmune disease is about. And then we also insert mission cards. So, it's more of, a small act of kindness. So every piece of paperwork or every piece of flyer, anything that is related to the palette or the collection in general, we had to get approved by them first before we, post it on our website or anything of that nature. So for me, and for the brand itself, it was an extensive process. So I don't know how it works for everybody else, but that is
Right.
just my experience.
Okay. I've always wondered that, because I feel like it's not as easy as people make it seem. And you explaining that process, but I'm sure, different charities are different, but it just seems more real to what you're explaining, that there's a process and you have to apply, and such and such and such. So that's good to know. That was good knowledge for myself.
Well, I think it's important to even go through a process that's extensive because that lets you know if a brand or if an organization or a charity wants you to be transparent with them, that only reassures you that they're just as transparent, to their audience as well.
Right. And and I know you chose the autoimmune charity, right? Is that what it's called? I don't want to say, I don't remember the name.
It's the American Autoimmune Related Diseases Association.
Okay. Okay. So you chose that one not because it was just a random one, because you personally struggle with the immune disorder, correct?
Yeah, so
The autoimmune.
I do suffer from rheumatoid arthritis, and I also suffer with fibromyalgia.
Mhm.
Um, which being a brand owner and also struggling with, chronic illnesses, which often appears very invisible.
Mhm.
It's a struggle. It's really hard, and I have seen so many people in my life who also struggle with autoimmune disease, and they're treated differently or looked at differently because on the outside they look great, but on the inside, they don't feel so great, and people tend to judge them based upon what they look like. And also because autoimmune disease is quite invisible, um, to the eye, a lot of people tend to think that people with autoimmune disease are hypochondriacs, which, they are not. And sometimes it takes a long time for them to actually get a proper diagnosis because of how, um, surprisingly, autoimmune disease is very common, but the diagnose the diagnosing process is very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Extensive.
Yeah, very extensive, because even for myself, it's still taking years, and I still have things that I'm dealing with health wise that,
Mhm.
they're still testing and constantly researching all the time.
Right. It's like an invisible disease
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
for at least the medical side of things, in order to catch it and be diagnosed and and treated and stuff like that,
Yeah.
from my understanding. Um, And that's the other thing. You are struggling with this, you are working through it, and you're a brand owner. And now only this is not your brand is not a new brand. This your brand has been around since it launched in 2016, July of 2000. That's almost what, 4 years going into 2020, right?
Yeah, well, actually, it was 2015, but I was a different name then, which was Unleashed Cosmetics. So, and then the first year was just completely, you know, that's a long story. And
Experimental.
I wouldn't say that it was just, I would actually say it was a very disappointing year because trademarking is so key and important to anybody getting into business. I would just say that. And it's a very expensive process. And it required me to change my name, from Unleashed Cosmetics to Kalon Cosmetics. So the first year, I'm pretty much having to give away all my inventory and changing the name again. Then the following year of, trademarking Kalon, I ended up going into opposition with another brand.
Hmm.
Um, luckily we came to an actual, court agreement that worked out for the both of our businesses and move forward. But trademarking in itself is very expensive and very important. And I would say, when you name your company a certain name, whether you think it's, popular or it's not, um, or not common at all, you'd be very surprised like how common certain brand names are. So, for example, you can sell. Well, one of the reasons why I had to change the brand name initially is because Coty Corporation has a brand name called Unleashed Cosmetics as well, and they sell soaps, which, they don't really sell any regular cosmetics, but they sell soaps. And because I put facial cleansers underneath, the other brand's name, the trademark office was like, well, they sell soaps and you sell facial cleansers, and because there's really not an actual distinct difference that we don't know about, you know, you guys would either have to ask them to change it, which will cost them money. And it was just a mess. I was just like, I'll just change it. So, yeah.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
very interesting to know because, but like lately I have been seeing that it's just better to, if you're gonna stick to a name, make sure it's not already trademarked, and to trademark your name. You know what I mean?
Right.
If it's something
And
that you legit are gonna do, then I would, even because like you said, it's an expensive process, and I've looked into it. So like if you are legit like dedicated, and that is either if it's a cosmetic brand, a soap, or if you're gonna sell rocks, for God's sakes, um trademark your name. I don't know.
well,
Just
and not only that, I will highly suggest anybody who has not trademarked their name not to use the trademark symbol or the registered symbol, because if you use it prior to even registering or going through the process, they will not proceed with your actual case, because it's actually illegal to use a trademark or a registered symbol if it's not an actual not actually going through the trademark process, or it isn't registered.
right, if it's not a legally already registered name.
Hmm.
Wow, that's all really good to know, because I do see a lot of people out here using that trademark
Oh
symbol,
yeah.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
I really doubt you trademarked that name, but okay, you do you.
Well, it's easy for everybody to go and actually find out whether a mark is trademark or not. It's a simple search, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's not
definitely.
that people wouldn't know. The downfall to that is when people do that, or if someone wants to utilize your name, they can easily go and want to trademark their name. Of course, you can run into issues like, for example, if I trademark, let's just say Sony, right?
Mhm.
And Sony never trademarked that actual name. Well, Sony's been in business way longer than I have, so they can actually claim the original owner through the trademark office. So even if you do register it before somebody, if somebody's been in business a lot longer, they can still trademark their name as the original, and it will boot you off.
Yeah. I feel like there's so much that goes into it, and even
Hmm.
like it's not just okay, I trademarked my name, but there's all these like subcategories that you need to keep in mind as you pick a name and go through all that process. Because
Right.
like you said, somebody else had that your first name that you chose, but since you were gonna sell facial cleansers, that person was selling soaps, which falls into facial cleansers somehow.
Well,
Well,
and the
soaps. Yeah.
toughest, the it would have been great if I could have just went to opposition with them, and or maybe asked them to make a change. But your first year in business, in which my first year I was very naive. I have to own that as a business
Right.
owner now. But me being a small brand asking a corporation to change to change something, it was very intimidating. And I will say, that whole first year taught me way more about myself than I could have ever imagined. So it was just like, wow, like it was very shocking to me. I was just like, I don't know what to do. Then
Yeah.
eventually I started, learning more, got attorneys and just all that good stuff. And, I learned a lot in that first year. So when I went into my second trademark, it was just like, I knew what I had to do from that point forward. So it was a lot easier for me because I understood a lot more. But prior to that, nobody kind of really teaches you these type of things that can happen.
Oh, definitely. I feel like, and we'll get into that later, but I feel like with starting a brand comes a lot of responsibility and a lot of research and
Hmm.
a lot of learning opportunities for you as a brand owner, and even before you launch, it becomes a lot of learning opportunities for you as a brand owner, or wanting to be a brand owner. um but so with the trademarks, is that why? So Kalon Cosmetics, for everyone listening, is spelled Kalon, and then it's Kosmetics. Kosmetics.
Yes.
So is that why it's spelled a different way?
No, Kalon is just, eventually when I let go of Unleash, I was thinking of something that really kind of, went with my story. And because Kalon stuck out to me the most because it is a Greek word that means
Mm-hmm.
beauty that is skin deep. And because of me doing a lot of soul searching and kind of trying to figure out the layers of myself back when I was a victim, it it resonated with me a lot because our beauty is skin deep, and sometimes it takes a minute to search for it and to realize it. So it resonated with me a whole lot, and it fit my story, and I just felt like it was really perfect for that. And I'm so glad that I didn't, stick with a first name because Kalin is just everything that I am and more.
I love that. I love it. Even though I struggled saying the name. It's so for everyone listening, and the way you say it is Kalin Cosmetics.
hmm
Kalin, because I would honestly, I said it. I think I said it. Kalon, Kalon, yeah,
Because it looks like salon, yes.
yeah.
It looks like salon just with a K. So you have people who say Kalon, Kalin, Colin. Like I've heard all types of names. It doesn't really necessarily bother me,
hmm
um, because it's just like I think even Anastasia Beverly Hills. I think some people call it Anastasia. Anastasia. It's
Oh
just
yeah, yeah.
so many different, variations and pronunciations of the way that people say things. So it doesn't
Well,
bother me a bit.
yeah, and nowadays, it could your name could look one way and it's said completely different.
Yeah,
Because nowadays,
definitely.
people just come up with these weird ways to say one name. I'm like, listen, we don't got time for this. Okay. We need to stick to one way. I already struggle enough with saying people's names, and then then I run across like this name that is spelled one way, and I'm sounding it out because I'm that's how I was taught how to read. So and then
hmm
they're like, no, that's not how you say it, and I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. But it's an interest. Obviously, I would have never gotten known how to say it if you wouldn't have told me. But now that we all know, we can all say Kalin Cosmetics.
Yes, yes.
So you have a lot of products. Well, hitting a lot of I guess beauty related products, which is you have eye products. Which do you have palettes?
Yeah, so the first Goddess collection was our first like huge palette ever. So that was just something I really wanted to focus on. I didn't want to just throw out a palette because, when you start talking about palettes, now you're talking about resourcing and maximizing the capabilities of, where you get your products and everything from. So like I said initially, I started off, private labeling. They didn't really offer palettes through private labeling. It's easy to go to like, maybe somewhere to like China to really get like a palette done and, sell it. But I never wanted to go down that route. I need to be fully invested and involved in the entire process of pretty much all of my products. I need to know what's going in them and see how I feel about the, entire process. So the first palette, was the Goddess collection, which, Kelly actually fully designed the entire, outline of the palette. So the design and everything was really Kelly's idea. We had a few ideas, but that's the one that we settled on and we loved it. And then obviously, formulating because I've been in business so long, there's been so much prior to coming into business and during business. I've learned a lot about research and development, formulation, working with labs and all that good stuff. So, eventually it got to a point where we were able to actually create our first palette. So our next actual big palette will be happening in 2020, which, we're excited about, but I'm not going to spill too much about it, but
We're
that
not
is the
getting too
only
much of
palette.
that tea.
Yeah.
That's
So,
exciting though.
yeah.
I'm excited for that. And my goal is to buy the palette when it comes out. So yes,
Yay!
I need to get it together. Like I need to get it together. But, um, so you have eyes, face, brushes, and lips and skincare. And I actually know that you came out with I don't know how to say it's,
M-
the
Micellar
water.
water.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Marcelo water. That it is. I struggle. I struggle
It's
in
okay.
general. So I saw that you came out with it. And I've heard great things about it from what I've read. So that was your newest launch, correct?
Yeah, that was our newest launch because, again, like I said, we're trying to deplete pretty much the rest of our private label products. Anything that we pretty much didn't have a full hand in as far as formulating ourselves or customizing ourselves, we really want to kind of get rid of that. Skincare is probably one of the most complex to actually formulate, and stability testing is really important to anything that has water in it. So I want to say summer of last year, we started on an entire new line. Even though my seller came a little bit later on during the winter months last year, we have like an entire full line that we're ready to launch, but we're slowly but surely incorporating it because a lot of people do love our current skincare products. So it's kind of, hard to kind of get people like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to buy this again and reintroduce them to something
Yeah,
new. So
definitely.
once we completely deplete out the rest of our actual inventory load that we have, we're going to start introducing some of the new stuff that we do have.
Hmm.
Because like I said, people are kind of already, used to what we did have, but because in this process, we're kind of trying to go with a more natural formulation, which our products are currently natural. But there are some ingredients that people are opposed to, which is a huge problem in our industry as well,
Hmm.
because some people want to go clean, some people want to go green, and it becomes a little complex because, there are some natural ingredients, but even though they're natural, they still go through a chemical process because, they have to be refined or anything of that nature. So still they go through another chemical or synthetic process, that allows them to be suitable for skincare. But
Right.
because but because there's a lot of misinformation, especially parabens is one thing that's highly what's the word looking for, that's highly misconstrued on the actual on the internet.
Hmm.
And because, brands will say, oh, no parabens, no this, no that. So people are like, oh, I don't want that in my product anymore. So it's like a bunch of fear mongering. So you have to be very selective and very innovative when it comes to creating new products and new technology, because you can create something and suddenly out of nowhere somebody's like, oh, no disodium EDTA, it causes cancer or it causes this, and you're just like, no, no, it doesn't. But because everybody else believes so, it's hard to
Yeah.
change the opinion of others.
Yeah, and in society nowadays, it's just if you say something and it gets enough traction, the whole world is gonna believe it, and then it's just like, oh, this is true because the whole world believes it. You know what I
Right,
mean? And
right.
nobody takes the time to do the actual research to be like, okay, maybe we need to look into this statement to see if these are facts or if these are just people saying things because they want to say things. And that's a huge problem in this industry. Like it's such a huge problem.
Yeah. There's actually cosmetic chemists out there, who are amazing, by the way. They use their actual platforms to try to educate people on some of the things that the internet has, um, represented in a false manner. So, you know, for example, parabens for itself, people will pick apart the actual study. And sometimes reading studies includes a lot of scientific information that people do not understand. It's just, imagine reading a chemistry book and you have no idea about, chemicals or compounds or anything like that, but you're reading a piece of information and suddenly you see something that was tied to a piece of breast tissue, and you start to pick apart pieces from it to narrate your own story. And therefore, when you start posting that out there, it creates, fear mongering for us.
Yeah, and exactly. Like it just creates this traction, and then and it blows up, and people just believe it.
Yeah,
With
I've,
without doing research.
yeah, I've seen, actually, I still watch a lot of YouTube. I'm very guilty. I've seen some people, talk about what's in skincare, what they shouldn't have, what they should have. And, it's just when they start talking about certain things that they're not really educated about or don't have, maybe an esthetician or a dermatologist or a cosmetic chemist license, it I feel that it's not okay to spread that type of information if they aren't really sure, if that makes sense, because
Yeah.
it harms the actual industry itself, because now you're trying to get, you are asking for chemists to get even more creative and suppliers to become more innovative with trying to develop something that is geared more towards them. And it's just like either using natural or synthetic. And then it's like, no, I want all natural, no synthetic. And she's like, well, how do you want us to create this,
Oh.
when, without putting synthetic compounds together? It can get really complicated, but luckily the industry in itself is very innovative. So they have a lot of interesting technology out now that, either makes formulating, much more easier, but it does get a lot more complex. It does.
Okay, yeah. I just feel like a lot of it's a win. It's either a win-win or a lose-lose because
Mm-hmm.
with people nowadays, because it's like I want this, but then I don't want that, but then you do that, and then I still don't want that, and it's like, okay, you know what? At some point, brands like, and I don't blame it when brands are like, you know what, we're just gonna create what we know is right, and because we know what our products have. Period.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame them because at the end of the day, you can't please everybody.
That's very true.
And
Very true.
yeah, you just can't please everybody. And I'm okay with that.
Same here.
Yeah. And then, so going briefly, because I know that the topic of private label could be a very extensive subject. Very briefly, can you explain to us the pros and cons of private labeling
Are we talking private label in the
for
US, or
cosmetics?
are we talking
I
private
don't
label overseas?
know. I don't know. So tell us, I guess, a brief example, or a brief, not example, but a brief explanation of the difference between the both, or both.
Okay. Well, I'll give the pros and the cons. The pros of private labeling is that you can easily start a brand. Um, you can also work closely with the private label manufacturer. You can pretty much, test out all their products first and see how you feel about them. You can also customize your private label formulas. You can pick your own colors, all that good stuff. The downside to that is that if you are not formally trained or don't have enough knowledge or research about whether it's the private label manufacturer that you're working with, cosmetic ingredients, you have no clue what you might be getting yourself into. Which kind of brings me to my next point of private labeling overseas. Because you don't really have so much of a transparent relationship. I mean, unless you have money to go overseas and, see the entire process of your products or whatnot. If you're really starting overseas, you kind of don't know what's actually going inside of your product. And there's suppliers overseas that sometimes aren't really reliable, as far as what they're putting inside of their actual ingredients. So, it there's pros and cons to it. Pros is that it's cheaper to go overseas, way cheaper, easier to work with. You don't have to pay out as much money for, minimum quantities. There's a lot of private label here that requires you to buy 100 to 200, quantity of stock of just one particular item, whereas overseas you can go as low as 10 or 50. So, it's really just up to what someone is comfortable with, to be honest.
Okay.
Personally, I would just say do what you feel is best and test it out first. But
Yes.
that that's all I can say.
Okay. Well, the only reason I ask is I don't know anything about cosmetics. I don't see myself at least coming up with a cosmetic brand anytime soon. So it's good to know. It's a lot of knowledge for me and for the listeners. So, with that being said, we are gonna go move into more of influencers and the beauty community. Now, I know PR searches are very, very, they have been very popular this year. And um, what are your thoughts on PR searches, and what do you have a PR list, or how does your PR list work for the brand?
Well, PR searches, wow, that is a topic in itself.
That is true
Uh,
too. So, I mean, we could briefly touch on that topic as well. And if you guys want any further information on that, we can also, probably record another episode just talking about certain topics.
yeah, sounds good to me. So with PR searches, I feel that it's an organic way for brands to scout out talent, very easily. However, it does create some sort of competition amongst people, and it's kind of like, you're in an art show and you're trying to compete and become the number one spot. And, once all the winners are picked, it kind of creates this domino effect of people feeling sad and depressed. And when you see it, it's just really, really sad to see. For Kalon itself, we just stick with an influencer form. Either we will scout out talent ourselves, or we would go through the actual form to look for people who identify with our niche. So people who are all about giving back to the community, people who are about making a difference or utilizing their story to help other people. Those are people that we like to work with. And some of our influencers, they have such amazing stories, and they really align with our brand. So a lot of the times we're not just cherry picking based on followers or their talent or anything of that nature. It's more so about their story, what they want to do for the community, and how they want to make a difference. So, and that's really important for me. So if we are doing a public search, we'll just tell people, hey, we're looking, this is our form. And we don't throw away any application, because when we can add more as a brand, we'll start looking through the forms and applications to see, who is going to fit in with our niche as a brand.
Right. Like the aesthetic of your brand.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, because, we're all about, the community with the Goddess Collections. We want to bring awareness to domestic violence, sickle cell, and so much more.
Hmm.
If someone is just really just kind of in it for just the makeup, we don't really want to work with them. And not that anything is wrong with that, it just doesn't align with the direction that we're going as a brand.
Yeah, no, and that completely makes sense because I feel like um as an influencer, at least for me, I want to work with a brand that, one, there's a meaning behind my affiliation or me being on your PR list or something like that. There's a meaning behind it. Like you said, if it's about the makeup, I can just go buy the makeup. You know what I mean? But
Right.
I feel like there's so many influencers, and not a big percentage. There's a little bit of everything everywhere, but I feel like there is a percentage of influencers that just want to be on PR lists and just want to be affiliates just to have that makeup. And I feel like some people do get on these PR lists and then they get the makeup and then they never promote it. And I'm just like, the partnership between a brand and the influencer should be that you want to promote the brand. You want to help the brand, and the brand is there to help you as well by providing the materials, or by providing like exposure on the social media platforms of the brand. But I just feel like there is a lot of influencers that just do it for the makeup and just to say, oh, I'm on a PR list. You know what I mean? And I feel like it shouldn't be like that.
That's always a possibility. We have worked with a few people that, either, from my standpoint, I don't know whether they like the products or not. The role may never know, but, we just move on and, work with other people. And we tend to try to stay working with smaller influencers, um, because they do have a lot to give. They just have, I feel like the smaller that they are, the fresher they are, and the more that, they want to work with a brand.
Yeah.
And when you find those gems, they're just such amazing people with amazing stories. And, you have to kind of like go through the surface of everything, whether people just want products or, people who just really want to work with you as a brand. So sometimes it can get a little bit harder, but I think some people are really accustomed to bigger brands and them just adding people on to PR versus smaller brands. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And I agree. I think that, and that also has to do with not just the influencer, the brands, these bigger brands, they kind of just set kind of that expectation for some of these influencers to just want to be on a PR list. And cuz some brands, even if you're on the PR list, they won't post you on your platform, on their platforms. They won't even like, they'll just send you the product, add you to the PR list, and you and them go their own ways. You know what I mean? And I feel like it shouldn't be like that. I feel like it should be more of a connection between the two. It's like a partnership, like I said, and I feel like somehow it has gotten lost.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. I mean, it's understandable because, I have sent packages to people, and of course, they hold bigger brands to um a higher level because the probability of them being posted is important for their career growth, which is understandable. So sometimes as a smaller brand, you will get put on the back burner, or creators want you to pay them if you want to get boosted up on their schedule, so to speak. But again, it's really just kind of going through the surface of, those type of creators and really finding the ones that really want to work with you. But, big brands have created this, type of wave that we do have going on right now with PR.
Yes, and I'm hoping for 2020 we lower the amount of PR searches we're having, because I feel like at some point that's a marketing way that the brands are doing. It's a marketing strategy that the brands are using for, obviously, to get traction on their brand or whatever the case may be. But with these influencers, and somehow I feel like that's why a lot of influencers think that starting a brand is easy, because, oh, I'm just going to add, I'm just going to start my own brand and do it different. But they don't realize that starting a brand, it's not easy.
Oh no. Oh
And
no.
and that, that kind of like takes me towards the next thing, is like, what are your thoughts on all these brands that are starting these? And this is a topic that just kind of like frustrates me, because it just frustrates me, because I feel like there's always a brand starting or coming out. It's either every week or every other week or every weekend or every day there's a new brand. And I just feel like, and most of these brands, and I'm going to say, I feel like most of these these people are just doing it for either a small cash grab, or they think that it's gonna just happen overnight and boom, my brand is noticed. But I also think that people don't realize that it takes a lot to actually start a brand, to own a brand, to manage a brand, because it's not just about slapping a name on a product and moving on.
Yeah, I've seen, if we're talking only about small cosmetic brands, because when I started out, there was hardly any indie brands out there. So within the past year or so, I've just seen so many brands pop up. I've also seen a lot of them close. Um, I've
Because
seen
they don't know
some,
how to manage them.
right, and some of them are, whether it's a quick cash grab, they're just using the money on, their own personal needs. And, business is not personal,
No.
and normally the first year or two in business, you are not paying yourself. Granted, it is possible, especially if your brand goes viral. But as far as, all the legalities and logistics of a business just makes it a little bit more complex to just, put the money that you got right into your pockets. It just doesn't work that way. One of the most important things that for me as a brand owner that I find is a common problem is DIY makers. You have people who are formulating things at home and they're selling it. Granted, there's nothing wrong with anyone who has a home lab. I have a home lab myself, but there's an issue with people who do not know how to properly formulate. There's preservatives. People don't use those. There's people who are just putting things together because they've seen it on the internet and they think they can sell it. I've seen someone who created a toner with just water, witch hazels, and a few essential oils. That is not a toner. That is just water with witch hazel and essential oils. So, it's a little bit, it's shocking to me because, you doing that is harming someone else's skin, and you're not only, harming them in the process, you're making them feel like they cannot trust smaller brands. And when you do that, you put a bad taste in people's mouth. And now, other brands have to work 10 times harder to prove their credibility. So it's a lot.
It is, and you said it. It makes it hard for the consumer to trust these smaller indie brands because there's some great ones out there that
Hmm.
you can trust, and you guys, are transparent. You guys are drama free, and that's the kind of brands that we should be supporting. And and the fact that these people come out with these brands, like you said, DIY brand. Listen, I am not going to buy anything that is made in your kitchen.
Well, okay,
Period.
so I do want to break that stereotype because there are a lot of amazing brands that do start in the kitchen. There's just a lot of them that started in the kitchen. You have to think about even some of the bigger indie brands now that just started in the kitchen. The thing is, with a home lab or a home DIY base situation, you have to have a well ventilated system. You have to have a very sterile environment, and it's good to use lab equipment. And, anything that you use lab wise, obviously you cannot use back in the kitchen. So I've seen where people just use like spoons and stuff like that. And some people just are opposed to it. But if you think about it, if they're using, which, you know, I'm not the best environmentalist and I'm getting better at it because I do recycle. But when you use plastic or anything that's easily, that you can throw away, that's not recyclable, it's easier to use in a lab because, you're not doing a lot of cross contamination and a lot of,
Mhm.
cleaning up that you have to do. So it's easier to toss things in the trash. But there are people who would just use, certain kitchen utensils that they bought specifically for their lab, that they'll wash and clean and you reuse again in the lab. So some people are just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to use anything that had a spoon in it, but just like that spoon was never eaten off of. You know what I mean? So there's pros and cons because you don't know what people are actually doing with their stuff. You have
That's
no
true.
idea. But I do know from a home lab perspective and how I generate my formulas, or if I work with a lab, I just know some of the common equipment that we do use and how to keep a sterile environment. But again, that comes to like good manufacturing practices and, being well versed and knowledgeable in this type of field, which a lot of people are not. And it's very dangerous because you are not only creating an environment which you can create things growing into products and that affecting people's skin. So
Exactly. And that's what I mean. Like, I listen, you could do it in your kitchen table for all I know, but but like you said, and I feel like just, I guess me, because I'm very skeptical about everything. I'm just like, what, are you really sterile? Are you in a really sterile environment? Like you said, like I'm sure, like, from what I know of you, you have a sterile lab in your home.
Mhm.
So that's different because you have a sterile lab, you know what you're doing. It's just hard. I think, right, what it comes down to is just being trustworthy and of your consumer, because we just don't know. And
Well, and for me, honestly, once if I formulate anything myself, I would um once I finish it and I'm like, oh, this is great, this is amazing, it goes to the lab and then it goes through stability testing. So my products in itself will still always go through an entire process. There's just not something I would honestly create and be like, hey, this is perfect, it's going out in the market. It still goes through an extensive process. So that's the one important thing for me as a business owner. If I don't have the lab to do it, or if I personally formulate something, then it goes through that entire process before it goes to my contract manufacturer to put out on the shelves. Now, you do have people who do everything for themselves. One of the things that you can do or be aware of as a consumer is that if someone is, instantly create something and you see it on social media and they say it'll be out in 2 weeks, then you should be a little concerned about that. If they say, "Oh, I just made this. Tell me if you guys want it. I'll put it out in a few weeks." Those are things to be leery of because it's just like most products are not that quick to market unless you're somebody like ColourPop. So
oh yeah, and we saw, I mean, everybody, I'm hoping everybody has seen the, what is it called? The
broken.
Broken. There we go. See, I can't even remember the name. Um, we saw all of that going on. So yes, you're absolutely right. And I think that's the part where the doubt comes in. Like, are you really? Because since everything has been lately, we've been seeing a lot of how the cosmetics are being made and stuff like that. Like, it takes time to create these things, and
hmm
and if you're saying you're gonna be, launching in 2 weeks, I'm like, okay, well, we have to question this. Like, this is very
hmm
questionable, because how is one cosmetic brand over here? We're talking about smaller brands, because the bigger brands, I have no idea, but they could be sketchy too, for all I know. But these smaller brands, it's like, so today I came out with a brand called, I don't know, ABC, and then 2 weeks from now I'm gonna have a whole highlighting collection, and I'm just like, how am I producing this? Like, you know what I mean? So
Well, I
I
would hope before you come out with your brand, you do have, a product or products to put out on the shelves initially. Because I
but
do
that's
see
not
that.
always the case.
Right, right. It's almost like spur of the moment. I created something and now want to put it out. And that's very dangerous. You don't want to do that. There's a lot of amazing indie brands though. Hey Glisten is one of them that I know. And, she's she does a lot of stability testing with her products. So I can hear her talk about something. I'm like, God, when are you going to put that out? It's
Right.
been
Like,
so
we
long
need this
now, but
today.
yeah, but she really takes her time with, her actual products, which is amazing. Same thing with like Wispy Winks. Or, you have amazing people like Terra Moon Cosmetics or, Dear Katie Brown. So there's just so many amazing brands out there that do everything the right way. And those are brands you really kind of want to affiliate yourself with. Some other brands I would be allow them to build their credibility. I would say that.
Right, right. And I think, and everyone that's listening, you guys should check these out. These brands. I think I know of the two that you mentioned. I believe Wispy Winks.
hmm
She's in Europe, right?
Yeah, she's based in the UK.
UK, and then, um, hey, is it Hey Glisten?
Hey Glisten. I
Hey
love that
Glisten.
name. Hey Glisten.
Yeah.
Um,
I've seen it on Twitter.
yeah. She's been around a couple of years. There's Bougie Babe. I
Oh
know
yeah.
that they're in the process of their trademarking process. There's Terra Moon Cosmetics, and this Terra is spelled Terra. And
Mhm.
then there's Dear Kitty Brown, who's also a registered trademark brand as well. So they're all pretty amazing people. So
I'm
I
gonna have
would,
to check them out too.
yeah,
I will
they're
do that
amazing.
for sure. And then
Yeah.
I will buy from them because I need to do that. But I'm on the no buy, so
That,
maybe
trust me, I understand.
yes, I'm on a no buy, so maybe a month of next year I'll take that and buy from, the smaller indie brands because these bigger brands honestly are not doing much for me lately with all these launches. So,
Hmm.
I'm going to have to support my indie brands regardless of what they're selling. If it's lashes, glosses, I'll buy whatever.
Yeah, that's one thing that I made sure that I did this year and last year is just support a lot of indie brands, primarily because, well, except for foundations, I pretty much just have the same two that I kind of just switch in between. But I kind of just love the stuff that new indie brands put out, or not so much new, but indie brands, the new stuff that they put out. So I would just purchase it and utilize those items because they're just as great, if not even better, than some of the bigger brands that I know of.
Yeah, that's right. Um So, and the other thing is the consumer. I know that we are gearing. I feel like we should be gearing more towards the more mature audience. What is your consumer base, or who do you target?
So typically my target audience is normally between the ages of 25 through 34. I kind of want to go to, a more mature audience, and not that my audience is not mature, but I think because coming in with a private label and the direction that I was taking, I want my brand or the aesthetic of the brand to angle itself a little bit more towards, feeling professional, looking professional, but not that expensive. So, this way everybody feels like, hey, like I can have something that looks really, really nice, feels nice, and it's quality and it looks quality, but it's very inexpensive. Um, in a medium range, so to speak, because some of the products can range up to like $18 or anything of that nature. But I just want people of all ages to feel like the product is for them, but I do want to put a more focus on my 30s and 40s mature audience. Plus, I love the mature creators that we have. They're some of the most amazing people that I know, and they are they are the primary purchase or customers of a lot of brands out here. It's normally not, anybody under the age of 30 that is pretty much allowing these bigger companies to profit. It's normally, people that are much older. So, they make this industry what it is.
They sure do because they are the ones, and this is the thing, like the more older community, I want to say, the more mature
Sure.
influencer, not older, it's like you're old, but I'm just saying, like, the more mature influencers are the bigger spenders. So that's why these brands, like you say, are who they are, because these mature influencers, like, they've been around, like, they're the ones with the coin, they're the ones spending. Yes, there is some of the younger influencers that do spend a lot of money towards these brands, but I feel like we should be giving the more mature influencers more attention because they bring a lot of knowledge and they bring a lot of how do I say, like, respect, maturity into this industry. Because, and as we talk about influencers, that drives into the creators nowadays. I feel like the creators nowadays, especially the younger generation, even my age, think that, um drama sells, and I don't think drama should sell. I feel like to make it in this industry, you don't have to be problematic, and that's why I like the more mature influencers, because they're just so unbothered with everything else that's going on regarding drama and stuff. Like, they are just focused on giving you knowledge, teaching you how to do stuff in the, like, teaching you how to do makeup. They can just They're just so knowledgeable and wiser than a lot of us.
Right, right. They are. And they provide a feedback that is very, very well needed most of the time. And I just really have a lot of respect for them. There's mature women such as Marla Keenan, um, Jennifer Loves Reviews, and there's just so many to try to name. Bridget, or she's got Keeping It Up with Bridget.
Oh, I
So
love
some,
all those three.
yeah, they're amazing, and they give the content that especially for me as a viewer of YouTube. There are some of the people that I love watching because they give different perspectives, and what it is that they like about a product, what they don't feel, touch. All those things are really important, especially for a brand, because you want to know how to either improve your product or what to do for next time. So the mature audience definitely needs, more paying attention to, and a lot more visibility.
Yes, definitely. And I love Marlo, of course. She's a really good friend of mine. And I've met Jen Loves Reviews. She's actually the sweetest. And I love her channel because it gives you, it's like a whole, like, regular, how do I say, a regular TV channel, because you get you get makeup news, you get just a little bit of everything, and she gives you so much knowledge that you don't even think you needed. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
for
Like,
sure.
she'll do like an intensive review on, like, a product that you're like, I didn't think I needed to know that, but now I do. So, like,
Right,
it makes you think of things that, about a certain product or about a certain brand, that we just see like the surface of things,
hmm,
and she, like, goes in deeper, and I feel like we need a lot of that. We need more knowledge of what's under the brand, what's under the surface of all these products, of all these brands. So I feel like, and that's what the mature audience looks for, because they're not bothered with a cute packaging. Yeah, that's a bonus, but
right.
for them, it's like, it's like they needed to work on mature skin. They needed to work on, your eyelids, because we all have different types of eyelids.
Hmm.
So that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for the cute packaging or the eyeshadow that smells like bananas. Like, I'm really not bothered by the smell. Like, give me something that works and I'm good. And
Right,
you're honest. They're not gonna sit there and be like, "Oh, I love this product even if it didn't work for me." Like, how is that? They're just true people, and I completely understand, and I know, I completely agree that we should be gearing more towards the mature audience, and they deserve a lot of more recognition in this industry.
yeah, definitely agree.
All right. Well, with that being said, we covered a lot today.
Yes, we
Yes,
did.
we covered a
we'll pro-
lot.
we'll probably have to have a part two at some point.
Yes, definitely. So for the viewers, for those of you that listen on YouTube, because I do have a YouTube channel for just the podcast, um, for those of you that listen on YouTube, you can comment and let us know if you want a part two. We can get more into different topics, or just like have a special episodes for special topics, because Jaleeda is very, very knowledgeable, and I think that it's good to talk about certain things, and for you guys, the listeners,
Oh,
to
thank you.
yes, of course. And if we can pick her brain, we're gonna pick it. So
You definitely should do that. You definitely should do that.
yes, because we need to be more knowledgeable of what products we're using and how this industry and how we can improve. Because if we want the world to change, if we want to see change in the world, it has to start with us.
That's right.
So, um, with that being said, let us know if you guys want any future episodes. Jaleeda, is there anything else that you would like to, I don't know, maybe give us some advice, give influencers some advice, or like, the brand, somebody that wants to start a brand, or just some, I know that you already gave us a little, I guess, a sneak peek of what's coming for 2020 for Kalon Cosmetics. So anything you want to just let us know.
Well, for one, thank you for having me. And two, I would say this going into the new year, definitely do not try to do anything you're not passionate about. Don't do anything because it's popular. Don't do anything that's just not of your comfortability. Is that a word? I think it's a word.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll make it a word.
but it's late right now, so um, I would say, do things that you're passionate about and make goals for yourself. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the best piece of advice that I can give. If you are trying to start a brand, please do everything legally first. Try to get as much knowledge as you can. If you want to go to school, please do. Do as much research as you possibly can. There are great schools out there, such as the Natural School of no, the School of Natural Skincare and the Institute of Personal Care Science, with Belinda Carley, who's the director, and she's phenomenal. And that is it as far as any advice I can actually give.
Okay, well, that's great advice. Any advice is good advice, in my opinion. So, and of course, it was an honor to have you on my podcast, and thank you for being my first interview. Uh,
Thank you.
thank you
Thank you.
giving my podcast the opportunity to get to know your brand and to get to know you a little bit more, and and for giving us the knowledge behind everything that we discussed today. So I'm very honored, and I hope we have many more episodes together.
Me too.
With that being said, we're gonna go ahead and close out. Everybody, make sure you go and follow all of us. The brand Kalon Cosmetic can be found on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, I believe, and YouTube. Right? I believe
Right.
YouTube as well.
Yes. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Perfect. So, I don't know if Jaleeda, you'd like to be followed, or you just doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. I actually don't really use my personal social media that much at all.
Okay,
Um,
so
but
everyone just
but
follow the brand.
yeah, that's pretty much where you can contact me the most of the time, because I have seen people contact me on my personal, just like, oh, sorry, I did not see this.
Oh, okay. So just follow the brand if you guys want to chat with your I'm assuming your team. You guys can DM them on these social platforms. Everything will be located, if you're listening on YouTube, will be located in the description box, and I will also put all that information in the description of the podcast apps and all of that. So don't forget to follow me and the podcast. The podcast is only on Instagram. It is Chatting More with Lou, and then also on YouTube, same thing, Chatting More with Lou, and then me on everything you can possibly think of. But with that being said, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for another wonderful episode. Um, Go ahead and show us some love, and we're gonna close out. And remember what I say: Let's keep trying to get our shit together. Bye, guys.